Hello students, this is a presentation on using the calculator that you'll have in the math lab for tests. We use the TI-30XS multi-view. So you can see on the screen here, if you go and buy this calculator at the store, it's going to look like this, sort of white background with a blue face. The ones in the lab, it's the same calculator, but they'll actually be yellow. For purposes of this video, I want you to be able to see the buttons a little better, so I'm going to change the color scheme here to black, just so we can see these buttons a little more easily in the video. Okay, so first thing, if you are in Algebra Business Cal 1 or Business Cal 2, the best mode for your calculator to be in is called Math Print. Now, by default, they should be in Math Print. However, remember there's also stat students that are using these calculators in the lab. For them, they want them in Classic mode. So before you do anything, when you sit down, before you even log into your software to take your test, go ahead and set your calculator up. Look right here next to the second button. There's a button called Mode. Click that. You get a screen like this. And let me give you a large screen of that right there. The first three options, degrees, normal, float, just leave those alone. There's really no reason to ever change those. The last option down here, you have Classic or Math Print. Again, Classic is really good for stats students because they do a lot of things with small decimals and things like that. It's just better for them to have things in Classic mode. But for us, again, Math Print. So I can use my up and down arrows here, go down to the last row, hit the right arrow to get over to Math Print, and hit Enter. Okay, so good. Now the calculator is in Math Print mode. This mode actually will give you answers in terms of fractions and square roots and those sorts of things. So let's just hit clear to get back to our main screen. For example, just to say a fraction, if I type, say, 2/3, okay, well, we know that's 0.666 repeating. Okay. If I want to change that to a fraction, hit the little double arrow button here, and it's going to give me the fractional form of that number, 2/3. Even things with square roots. Let's say I'm going to do the square root, second square root of, let's say, 125. Hit Enter. Look at how it gives me the answer. 5 on the square root of 5. Okay, so that's a lot nicer than having to simplify that radical sign yourself. So use that to your advantage. This is really more of something that an algebra student would need. If I do want the decimal for some reason, I can always hit the little double arrow button down here, right above Enter, and it'll give me the answer in decimal form. Okay, so this is the mode that you want to use. An important button to know is the fraction button, N/D, right where I'm pointing the mouse cursor. In other words, this calculator will let you type things in fraction form. In other words, instead of doing that 2 divided by 3 to get 2/3 like I had done before, I could just as easily have hit N/D, and it gives me a fraction. Put the 2 on top, hit the down arrow to get to the bottom, type 3, there it is. Okay. Again, if I put things in fraction form, it's going to spit them out in fraction form. Okay. Use that button to your advantage. If this was inside a larger calculation, you might have to use a bunch of parentheses and things if you were doing 2 divided by 3. But with the fraction button, you don't have to do all that. It's going to be fewer keystrokes to get to a solution. One other important button is your caret sign here. So if you look, there's x squared right above that. That's called a caret sign. That's your exponent button. So if I ever want to raise a number to anything, say I want to do 5 raised to I don't know, 12. Okay. I hit 5, I hit the little caret button, and I type my exponent in. And I can hit enter, get a large value there. Okay, so those are some basic things. The main thing I want to show you in this video is how to calculate or evaluate a function at a given value. So let me give you an example. Here's a function, f of x equal 4 times 3 halves plus 2x to the 3 sevenths, all squared, all over 28. Suppose I wanted to evaluate that function at 128. In other words, I would replace x with 128, and I'd have to calculate all this. If I was going to plug this into an old calculator or even a graphing calculator, unless it's something like a TI-89, I think they may have a fraction button on it, but I'd have to type in a whole bunch of things here. I'd have to put 3 halves in its own parentheses. I'd have to have 3 sevenths in its own parentheses. I would have had to use division signs instead of fraction bars for those. I'd have had to actually type in a caret sign that shows up on the screen to get up to where I get my exponents, etc., etc. So it can be, you know, quite a bit of keystrokes just to get all that typed in. Ultimately, your answer should come out to 43.75, or as a fraction, 175 over 4. Those are obviously the same thing. In this calculator, this is real easy to plug in. The first thing you'd want to do is define your variable. In other words, x is going to equal 128. So I want to state that in the calculator. Okay, so I go to my calculator. I'm going to plug 128 in for x. So I type 128. Next to the number 1, there's a store button, STO with a little arrow on it. Hit that button, you should get a little arrow on your screen. The next thing I need to do is state the variable. The button right above store is your variable button. Now if you notice on here, there's a bunch of different variables. There's x, y, z, t, a, b, c. Generally speaking, you just need one variable, so just hit it one time for x. If you wanted to use y, you could hit it a second time. If you wanted to use z, a third time. T, a fourth time. A, B, C, and ultimately you're back to x. Really, you just need to hit it one time. Just use x. That's really all you need. Go ahead and hit enter. Okay, so now anytime you type x in this calculator, it's going to treat it as the value 128. Okay, so you have x equal 128 typed into the calculator. The next thing to do is to go up here and type your function in. Now you don't have to type f of x. All you need to do is type what's on the right side of that equal sign in terms of x. So exactly what I have highlighted in gray there, let's type that into the calculator. Okay, so we have a fraction. On the top of the fraction, you've got 4. Then you have a parenthesis. Then we had a 3 halves, so use your fraction button here. 3 over 2. Alright, then we had plus 2x. So I'm going to use the variable button for x. There it is. I'm just typing x in. Raised to, so use my caret sign. That's my exponent button. To 3 sevenths. Now I want to do my parenthesis to my closing parenthesis. Make sure you hit the right arrow here enough to get down out of that exponent. So if I just hit it once, I'm still up in the exponent area. Hit it again, and now you're down out of the exponent. Okay. Close the parenthesis. Notice how those parentheses are the same size. They should be. That indicates you're on the right level there. And all that was squared. Okay, so this is my square button. And then our denominator was 28. So hit the down arrow and we can type 28 in. So literally right here, I've typed in exactly what I had as my function. 4 times 3 halves plus 2x to the 3/7 all squared all over 28. Again, that's exactly what I had highlighted in gray here in terms of x. Okay, go ahead and hit enter. There's my fractional answer, already worked out for you. If for some reason I wanted the decimal answer instead of the fractional answer, again, hit the little double arrow button right above enter, and it'll give me the decimal answer. 43.75 or 175 over 4, which is what we said it should be. Okay, so the idea is you can plug just the variable in without having to actually type the value you're evaluating at into the function. Makes it really nice to calculate values there. Okay, now let's say I wanted to evaluate that same function at a different value. Okay, so instead of evaluating at 128, maybe I want to evaluate it at something different. Let's say, I don't know, 256, just something different. Okay, 256, so I plug 256 in for x, theoretically. I don't know what those are going to come out to just yet. Haven't calculated that. Well, instead of having to retype this whole thing in again, it's the same function. So all I've got to do is change the value of my variable. So let's change x to 256 now. Okay, so let's make sure we're down here. 256 is going to be my new x value. So I'm going to type 256, store for x, hit enter. Okay, so now whenever I put x in there, it's going to be 256. Now I don't want to have to retype that whole function. All you got to do is use your up and down arrows here, go back up to where you had typed out that function. Just keep hitting up until you get to it. It's highlighted here, and hit enter again, and it'll bring it down for you. Hit enter one more time to evaluate. 75.79767,505. Now that's an irrational number, so there is no fraction for that because it's irrational. But the idea that I was trying to express there is if you need to evaluate at another number, you don't have to retype it all. You can use the up and down arrows to go and grab anything you had typed in previously. Okay, so I hope this makes things a little bit easier for you. One other thing, and this is really not a calculator question, but I want to mention it in the video here. In college, we do not use mixed fractions. Okay, leave everything in improper fractions. Okay, so you may have something. We've seen people do this, is why I'm mentioning it. Let's say I've got 12/5. Okay. All right, so that's that. If I want to see it as a fraction, okay, there it is, 12/5. There are some buttons on here to change to from improper to mixed fractions. Second, this little button here. Okay, gives me 2 and 2/5. Yeah, those are technically the same, but here's the thing. In college, we do not like mixed fractions. Do not ever use mixed fractions in any college class, with the exception of maybe some accounting class, way later on. I can't really think of anything else that might even use a mixed fraction. We do not like this. Okay? To us, if you look at that, it says 2 times 2/5, which is not the same as 12/5. So don't do things in mixed fractions. Leave them improper.